Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Today we're going to talk about a change the Steelers are making in their defense that's finally going to happen, something they should have been doing, and how they're going to do it. That and more of your calls taken here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. All right, Steelers fans, let's get into this. Now, I teased this segment at the end of last Friday's show when we were talking about how Alex Highsmith said he's very confident the Steelers are going to reach an agreement with TJ Watt. We don't know when that's going to happen, but probably is going to happen. Like that's just that. But he also talked to us about something else that would happen there at the end of the Steelers Thursday OTAs practice. And this also further told me that there isn't much doubt with the Steelers that TJ Watt's going to be part of the fold this year. They're not trading him away because they're putting together a plan for how both Watt and Highsmith can work better together in 2025. Because I asked Alex Highsmith about the potential of flipping him and TJ Watt's spots in the defense more often during games. And he gave me a full answer here saying it's part of the plan. Here was Alex Highsmith when I asked him that.
Alex, at the end of last season, TJ talked about the potential of being open to maybe moving around a bit more based off of how teams are trying to scheme you guys up. How have you guys talked about that as a team, just trying to free both of you guys up to keep people guessing where you line up?
Yeah, I think that's something that we definitely got to include in the game. Just like you said, I think teams were kind of catching on to what we were doing, and so I think if we're able to move around different spots and stuff like that, we'll be able to get teams off balance, and they can't just sit there and match protect. And so I'm just excited for what we're going to be able to do this year.
You guys have tons of experience working on the same sides and built that chemistry there. How do you build it so that you guys can have the same sort of chemistry and timing even when you flip different areas?
Yeah, I think just repping it in practice. I think that's a beautiful thing. It's about being out of practice as we get to rep those things and get comfortable once you're uncomfortable at. So whether that's switching sides or working different rushes and stuff like that. So like I said, we're just trying to sharpen it during practice so that we can be able to be effective with it.
Is that something you've started already, or is that something that takes time down the road?
Yeah, I mean we haven't started too much of it now, but I know going next week OTAs, we definitely that's plan on doing that, switching sides and stuff like that. So like I said, the more versatile we can be, the better.
Shout out my man Joe Rudder from the Triv with the follow-up question, because that's the next question I wanted to get asked, and he asked it, but it was, hey, so when you guys working on that? And he's like, not right now. We haven't been doing it so far, but next week in OTAs, we think we'll start working on that. And it's just my thoughts here, but if the point is to free up TJ Watt and you're talking about repping that, does that mean that they expect TJ Watt to show up this week during OTAs? Maybe not for sure, but it's at least something else to look at here. But let's dive more into why they're doing this. So one of my biggest critiques of the Steelers defense, outside of the run defense and the coverage issues that they had late in the season, was that they did not do enough to counter how teams were planning to stop or slow down TJ Watt. Now, teams were concentrating a huge part of their protection plans into how they wanted to stop TJ Watt with double teams from offensive linemen and also additional chip blocks from running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, and sometimes all three positions. It was pretty crazy. But we covered this on the show throughout the season. It was something that we knew about. I wrote about it in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette with a film study because the Steelers during the season recognized it and adjusted to it when they played the Giants. They flipped Watt and Highsmith just 4 times in that game, and it yielded positive results. Watt got more one-on-one opportunities, even on his natural side, which he lines up on the always mix it up, the left side of the defense, because he lines up over the right tackle typically, while Alex Highsmith lines up on the right side of the defense, typically over the left tackle. But the Steelers didn't use the switch after that too many more times. And I thought that could have been a mistake because in that game against the Giants, they got 2 sacks from TJ Watt. The pressure was ramped up. They won the game. The only other time that they used it more than twice in a game was their win over the Bengals when, again, TJ Watt had 2 sacks. They won the game. And in both those games, TJ Watt had a sack strip fumble that played a huge role in those wins. So, looking at those, when I said I went back and I looked at those are the only 2 times they did it. Those are 2 of the 3 games that TJ Watt had 2 sacks. So both of those times it yielded positive results. And then for the rest of the season, you really didn't see the Steelers do it that often. Now, part of this is because TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith have had elite chemistry for their 4 years to get together as starter. Because remember, Highsmith was drafted in 2020. Bud Dupree went out because he got paid. Highsmith rolled into a starting role in 2021. That was the year TJ Watt tied Michael Strahan's record. Alex Highsmith held up the defense as best he could when TJ Watt was injured in 2022. And then the last 2 years, they've been pretty good together. So Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt, they know their side. They trust each other. They have this really good chemistry that they've worked on for years. I mean, heck, TJ Watt's been a 4-time first-team All-Pro. Highsmith's had a double-digit sack season. You get my point there. And Watt's been on the elite on the left side of the field, and he's even talked about how he prefers that side of the defense lining up over the right tackle. It's just where he's more comfortable from. We talked to him back in his second year because remember his rookie season when he lined up, he used to line up over the right side of the defense, and he just said it wasn't as natural of a fit for him. And so the next year they said, hey, we're flipping me and Bud. He's going to do that side. I'm going to go. I feel more natural here on the left side of the defense over the right tackle of the offense. And that's when TJ Watt's production started to improve more. So eventually he became the TJ Watt, superstar defender, edge rusher, first team All-Pro, defensive player of the year type guy. And that's elite. And when an elite player tells you where they want to line up, you let them do it. I mean, heck, go ask Ryan Clark, Dick LeBeau, and Ike Taylor about where Troy Polamalu lined up. You know where he lined up? Wherever Troy Polamalu wanted to line up in the defense. Go ask James Harrison where he lined up sometimes. There are certain players you give the credence to. Hey, where you want to be, we trust you because you're that kind of a playmaker. So naturally, the Steelers would adhere to TJ Watt. And if you don't believe that TJ Watt wanted this, he even kind of admitted it at the end of the season when he said he has to be the one that's open to making this change because he wants to make sure that he's getting more production. He said this after when the Steelers were cleaning out their lockers the week after they were cleaning out their lockers after the Ravens loss. Here was TJ Watt.
I know you had a strip sack in the Bengals game that got called back because of the penalty. Other than that, why do you think you weren't as productive in these last 3 or 4 games?
I don't know. I just need to find ways to make more plays. Obviously, teams are playing certain ways and chips and helps and stuff like that and getting the ball out quick. And you need to be more open to moving around more and trying to affect games as much as possible. You guys know I want to affect the game more than anybody. But I don't want to selfishly take another guy's go to a different spot. And I feel like I could have a better rush on the left side. Definitely feel like schematically it's been a tough year for how the offensive scheme things to try to get me out of the game. And, it's going to be a big breakdown for me to try to find ways to make plays. I'm not making excuse for myself at all. I want to make plays. I need to find ways to continue to win off the chips and slides and things of that nature. And I'm going to work tirelessly this offseason to get that sorted out.
You mentioned
So right there, you have TJ Watt, saying that was months ago. That was January, right after the Ravens lost. That was still fresh. And he's saying back then, we got to make this change. So I personally, I think it's a positive there that he's willing to do this. And so now you have Watt acknowledging it back in January that this needs to be a change. And now you have Alex Highsmith acknowledging today that it is going to be a change. Now, those are all good signs for me that I think that this could actually happen. This could be something that the Steelers actively do to boost pass rush production. Now, I have a new film study coming out that's going to focus more on what they need to do and things that they did in that Bengals game and other things they could do to help with this overall project. That should be coming out in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette either today or on tomorrow on Tuesday. So look that up at post-gazette.com for that Steelers film study on specifically edge rushers and the alignment of Watt and Highsmith and what they can do to be better there. But the biggest thing to remember with all of this is it's not just about getting TJ Watt free. It's not just about that, him being on the right side of the defense against the, versus the left side, and that just solves every problem. It's more so about complicating and disguising what the Steelers are doing up front. I've said before on this show, defensive coordinator Terrell Austin, his specialty coming into the position was being a defensive backs coach, and he brought in more complex coverage packages that disguised what they were doing in the secondary. Go back and look at some of Minka Fitzpatrick's numbers from when he first made the switch and how they did that there. But his defensive fronts weren't as complex as Keith Butler, his predecessor at defensive coordinator, who was a linebackers coach. Keith Butler was all about mixing up and making complex blitz packages. But also, for years, Terrell Austin didn't have to create complex packages. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith were just wrecking balls. So they were just taking things over. And so they were dominant forces, and you didn't need to get too complex. But now you're probably going to see a more aggressive defensive pass rush package that the Steelers are going to be rolling out this year, along with maybe some more of those complex coverage schemes that I think could get highlighted more if the Steelers communicate better on the back end of the defense. And remember, a big reason for that communication problems was Cam Sutton, who's no longer around. I'll take the time to work. It'll take time for it to work and gel and for the chemistry to happen. But as Alex Highsmith said, this is what they're here in practice to do. They're working on it now. And I think if they succeed, this could play a very big role in the Steelers' defense and in the future of it still being a top-tier defense in the NFL. We're going to talk more about this and take some of your questions here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We still have a lot to discuss. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture. It'll double your reach to qualified candidates. It's no wonder that 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We're back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our show here today. Now, part of what can help with what the Steelers are trying to do with this defensive package and what they're trying to do in the pass rush and get a collective push from it. Make no mistake, part of what has to happen with this change we're talking about is more players taking part of the pass rush production itself. It can't just be TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith making the production happen. Them flipping and they just get more sacks. It's not that simple. Not only should Watt get more sacks, but so should Highsmith, so should Cam Hayward, so should Patrick Queen, and other starters who get it. Keanu Benton, for example, could be in that mix. But it should also open up chances for depth players to get more opportunities as offensive lines are more confused and less set about where TJ Watt and our Steelers are coming from. Because that's, again, the whole point of this is that you want offensive lines, when they come up to the line of scrimmage and they're making their call-outs, if they know that TJ Watt's in the same spot every time and they say that their whole plan is centered around making sure that he's negated on that same side every play, it's much easier for them to say, hey, he's in the same spot, communicate, boom, boom, boom. That's done. But when they have to guess every play, all right, he's on that side. Oh, no, he's on this side. Oh, no, he's backed off a little bit. And they have to guess a little bit more often. It forces them to communicate more. And the more they have to talk, the more chances that they'll miss a communication point, and then someone benefits from it. They're late to picking up their blitz. They're late to an adjustment. They make a mistake. They miss something. And that's where everyone else starts to eat. And in fact, I highlight a little bit in that film study I told you about where Patrick Queen got a sack while TJ Watt was lined up on the right side of the defense. He was flipped to the side that he's not normally on against the Bengals. He actually didn't get a sack, He got a holding. He forced a holding penalty when he was chasing down Joe Burrow, but it killed the play effectively. But that's where it could benefit everyone, including the depth guys. And I think that that's where something that the Steelers really could take a chance to succeed on. We go to our call line here, which, by the way, if you ever want to call with a question to the show, it's 412-223-6644. Leave your name, where you're from, keep your question under a minute. We'll try to get your question on the show. As I said before, we got questions. This one's from Dr. Bob out in Erie, PA, who's asking about those defensive depth players who could benefit.
Hey, Chris, this is Dr. Bob from Erie, Pennsylvania. Just wanted to hear your thoughts about what you think of the defense overall as well as their depth. I believe they're going to have at least 6 or 7 defensive linemen with Derrick Harmon, Keanu Benton, Cameron Hayward, Yaya Black, Daniel Ekwule, and Logan Lee. Who do you think would be the the 7th defensive tackle to possibly make the team? I'd like to hear your thoughts. I think their defensive line right now has great depth following draft. Have a great day and have a blessed day. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. As always, 412-223-6644. To answer your question, I think that guy's Isaiah Loudermilk. They brought him back for a reason. Loudermilk is experienced. He has good size. And I don't think Loudermilk is a terrible defensive lineman. He's just not the guy you want on the first line of reinforcements. Now, on the second line of reinforcements, as an extra rotational guy, I think Loudermilk is just fine. I think that's why he was brought back. Hey, you're a good 5th, 6th, 7th option if they want him at defensive tackle. So I would go without Isaiah Loudermilk to look to answer your question there. But to expand upon this, I think looking at the depth, I think there's a real chance for the depth across the board, almost on defense, to be better this year. For one, let's look at the defensive line. You said this, Dr. Bob. Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton. That's your 1-2 punch right there. You're excited for Cam Hayward to be back. You're excited for Keanu Benton to take a step forward. He keeps showing good signs for that. Then you have Derrick Harmon, your first-round pick. He's going to be a boost there. But then you have Daniel Ekwule, a guy they got from the Patriots, guy they got in free agency, a guy who's a physical run stuffer. He can be that guy up the middle that helps take on double teams a little bit better, and he's that veteran presence. Then behind him, then you have Yaya Black coming into the front. Then you have Logan Lee, and then you have Loudermilk. I really do think that Harmon and Ekwule as a second tier of guys behind Benton and Hayward might be the best 3rd and 4th options this Steelers defensive line has had in some time. And that could be the key the Steelers are really looking for with this defensive line. Because instead of like Montravius Adams, I think like Montravius Adams would be, if we were doing this group, he'd be on that 3rd line with battling out with Logan Lee and Yaya Black and Isaiah Loudermilk. But for the past few years, Montravius Adams had to be higher up in the rotation. He was like on that 2nd line or even a starter at times. And that's where I think the Steelers could really benefit by having this depth there. But I won't stop there at defensive line. Look at the 4-man edge rusher the potential that they have here. This has a chance to be the best 4-man edge rushing unit that they've had in a while. Of course, you got Watt and Highsmith up top as their 1-2 punch. We know Nick Herbig's been pretty good, and if he continues his progression, he can get even better. And then you bring in Jack Sawyer, your 4th-round pick this year, and Jack Sawyer projects to be a guy who maybe while Nick Herbig's your pass rush specialist, Jack Sawyer can be your run-stuffing specialist. And so now you could have 4 legit edge options that you're excited to have on the field at different times, give more breathers for Watt and Highsmith, and have a more complete group there. Then you have the inside linebackers that you have Patrick Queen, as your starter, a pretty good one there. And I actually think Peyton Wilson, who originally I was thinking could be a depth piece going into this season, he might be the starter next to Patrick Queen. And that would be a really athletic pair of inside linebackers that can go sideline to sideline, hit and be physical, rush the passer. But behind them, you do have Malik Harrison, who you traded for, who is a huge big thumper, run stuffer type inside linebacker, and you're bringing him off the bench. You're not depending on him every play. And then you still have Cole Holcomb, who is practicing in Steelers OTAs, who you were initially signed years ago to be the starter / Patrick Queen type linebacker. And now you're saying, hey, Cole, just be the rotational guy. Come off the bench, help us out in certain spots. that could be a really good inside linebacker group where you're not asking too much of certain guys and you have a rotation of healthy guys. Then you go to corner. You have Porter and Slay as your starters on the outside, with Trice as your top outside guy as a backup. And then in the slot, you have a battle between Brian Eccles, who you brought in, and Beanie Bishop, who you had last year. And I think he had, 3-4 interceptions. You have potential there. You have questions there. Now, I will say, I think the cornerback might be the most thin as far as the depth here. We got to see how some of these guys play out. But still, that's better than some of the years that they've had going into seasons. And then you go to safety, which also could be really special because you got Minkah Fitzpatrick back. You got Deshaun Elliott back. But I really like Juan Thornhill as a third safety option. I think he might be their best third safety option they've had to pair with Minkah Fitzpatrick for a minute, because Juan Thornhill can play deep. He can play the ball. He can be aggressive there. And I think that's something that could be an answer. You still have Miles Killebrew, who you know is a special teams ace and can help out. But then you also have the undrafted kid out of Iowa, Sebastian Castro, who I really think was an undrafted free agent steal for Omar Khan. I thought that guy should have gone in the 4th round. I was surprised that he was a UDFA when they signed him. I was like, oh, that's a good start. I think he'll be a good contributor down the line, but he can be your in the box safety extra guy there. So they've got safety depth. So this does, and you look across the board: D-line, edge rusher, inside linebacker, corner, safety. I think they're in a better position than they have in some of their recent years with their depth, where if someone goes down, they'll have an answer, or if someone's just tired and they need to keep up the pressure, they need to keep up the pace of the starters, they have guys who could come in and not be a huge drop off, and even take a step up, as there a lot of them are younger guys who could get sharper, better, more athletic, and keep growing into their careers in the NFL. So, and make no mistake, like, the Steelers still have a lot to fix. They still got to fix the run defense. They still got to be stronger there. They still have to improve this pass rush plan that we just spent the whole last segment talking about. And they need to confuse more offenses with it. They also need to make sure that they're not miscommunicating in the secondary. But they might have the best depth that they've had in a while to do all of those things. And I think that could be a big part of the bigger picture of what the Steelers defense is trying to do. Now, we're going to take another call, this time looking at the potential youth movement that Omar Khan could be building. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our show here today. Now, for those who follow this show, they know that the timeline I've been setting up for how the Steelers are going to find their next, or take their next shot at finding their franchise quarterback. They've tallied now 12 draft picks they're expected to have next season, with comp picks included, and I foresee their plan to use those picks and other resources to trade up wherever they finish the next year in the NFL, trade up and go get their quarterback that they think is the best of this 2026 class next year, and that's the quarterback of the future. But some people still do wonder, what if that plan ends up not coming true? What if after this season, we get to looking at the college quarterback class that's going into 2026 the same way we felt about the 2025 quarterback class? That ties into Andy's question. Andy calls in from Gettysburg. Andy, take it away.
Hi, this is Andy from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Not really sure what my question is, but I'm looking at the 2026 draft, and it looks like we have 7 picks in the first 4 rounds. I guess what I'm wondering is it best to give up a lot of those picks for a potential top quarterback, or could we use those 7 picks, bolster positions all around the team, and have a middling quarterback? Kind of what Ben started at, is kind of a team or a game manager, make good passes, maintain possession of the ball, move the chains, and rely on defense. I just don't know. That's a lot of high picks to be able to bolster the team. So just wondering your thoughts. Listen to the show every day. It's great. Keep it up. Have a good day.
Thank you, Andy. We appreciate your calls here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. If you want your calls heard on the air, it's 412-223-6644. Leave your name, where you're from. Keep your question under a minute. We try to get you on the show. Please do remember, we get a lot of these calls. So if we don't get you right away, we put you in a bank, and I kind of work my way through these calls, and we will be answering a lot of them this summer. We're trying to clear them out before training camp. But back to answering Andy's question. Now, Andy, you're asking, should you trade up? If, with all those picks there and the picks that they could get, if you think that you have your guy, the guy that you think is the guy to be the franchise quarterback, and it is attainable, I do think you go get him. I think, especially with the situation they're in right now, where they don't have that guy on the roster, I think you do go make that move. Heck, again, if that guy was in the draft this year, like for example, everyone was talking about Shedeur Sanders. I was one of the people who's like, I don't think Shedeur Sanders is a first round pick, y'all. Like, hey, let's hold up a little bit. Let's pause on that. But Lenore Sellers out of South Carolina, if that dude was in the mix, first of all, probably would have been picked second overall. But I would have been pounding the table to like, yep, trade up, go get him, do what you got to do, go get the dog. If Cam Ward was somehow available at 10th overall, or if this was a stronger quarterback class, I would have been for it there. But this next year, I think it could be that class. So to answer your question directly, Andy, yes, I would trade. Not the whole farm, like not every pick and 4 first rounders, right? But I would make be as aggressive I need to if I think I can go get that first round quarterback that is my franchise guy that's going to carry the franchise for the next 15, 20 years. Absolutely, you go get that guy. But let's say this doesn't happen. I'm going to acknowledge that crazy things happen in sports, and especially in college football. Let's say, because the whole point of this draft class is that this next year's draft class of quarterbacks is that there are so many quarterbacks who could be first round picks that it is tough to imagine that class being worse or as bad as this last year's quarterback draft class, where the only quarterback taken in the first round. Oh no, Jackson Dart was taken. So the 2 quarterbacks taken in the first round were Jackson Dart and Cam Ward. Cam Ward, I think, was a legit first round pick. Jackson Dart, I would not have picked in the first or the second round. That's just me. But let's say we get to 2026, right? And that quarterback class does not turn out to be the quarterback class that we anticipated. Arch Manning, who everyone talks about, let's say he goes back to college, which very well could happen. Let's say Lenore Sellers says, I'm going to take one more year. I want one more year with South Carolina, or he gets a big NIL payday and he transfers to Ohio State or wherever, and he makes more money. And then let's say Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, another top-tier quarterback that we think could be in that mix. Let's say that he has a rough year and he doesn't look like the guy. And then Drew Aller still looks like he's struggling with the deep ball. And then Nico Iamaleava doesn't work with his new team. And now all of a sudden you're sitting there wait a minute. Is this actually not a good quarterback class? Again, the reason why I'm saying 2026 should be the year for the Steelers to make their move at quarterback is I just named 5 quarterbacks for you. And so I doubt that all 5 of those quarterbacks are not there. I doubt that happens to more than two of those guys. I could say maybe 2 of those guys either go back or don't have the kind of year they want. And also, if that does happen, there's still a good chance that there's other quarterbacks that could rise up and take their place as being guys that everyone's like, hey, that's a first round quarterback, and we'll evaluate that when that comes. But the point is, there is a good chance in 2026 that this quarterback class could be the class that gives you multiple potential franchise quarterback options, and the Steelers that gives the Steelers the space to trade up, go get the guy that they think is the guy, and bring them to Pittsburgh and reopen your window of being a real Super Bowl contender. Again, it's tough to see for all of them not working out. But let's say something like that does happen. And we get to Andy's point where it's like, wait a minute. You have all these picks. You have 12 picks. Why not use them to complete the youth movement? Omar Khan could use these to get the best players available, keep doing what you've been doing. And you have a first, a second, and 3 thirds. That means the Steelers could legitimately have 5 picks inside the top 100 picks of next year's draft. And you could still trade up with those and still get a superstar player. Like, let's say Ohio State wide receiver Jeremiah Smith comes out in the draft early, and you're like, you know what, we're going to get in that guy. You could still stack up your picks and get a superstar like that. But if you kept those picks, yes, you could use them to bolster your roster if you don't think the quarterback that you really believe in is available for you. So I mean, imagine with the picks, you did something like this. You have just with the first 3 rounds, you have 5 picks in the first 3 rounds and potentially in the top 100. You need a partner for Joey Porter Jr. at cornerback. Check. You need Broderick Jones has a rough year, and you need a insurance policy at offensive tackle because you're not sure if he's going to be the answer long term. Check. Then you still need a playmaker wide receiver. Check. You did all 3 of those things, and you still have 2 third-round picks left over to address other positions inside the top 100. That's the value of that potential. So yes, in that situation, QB would still be an issue, and you still make other moves, but again, you're building up your roster to be ready for when that quarterback is available. But again, that's if the quarterback isn't available. I think they will be. I think this will be I think next year, but not by this time. By this time, we'll know who the picked. But I think by December and January of 2026, 2025 going into 2026, I think that's going to be the year or the time where you're going to start to say, okay, these are the quarterbacks. These are the guys that we're looking at here for the Steelers to be long-term answers. So I think that there's a potential for that. And I think that's what Omar Khan's setting up. But I think the other cool thing about what Omar Khan has set up is that if it turns out that's not the answer, he's got it. So that's what I have for you here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Thanks for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. Be sure to tune in. We always bring you to show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day. We're back here tomorrow with more here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Stay tuned.